Alright guys, so today we're going to show you how to make this perfect indoor setup. I got a surge protector with these 4 bulbs dropped through the top, and we'll go over how to make all of this. This lets out a little bit of heat and a little bit of light, but it's pretty much secured. This Mylar film here reflects about 80 to 95% of light, including UVA and UVB. A lot of people use aluminum foil, which actually only reflects about 30-25%, so it's very inefficient. So Mylar film is the big thing here that you really want. These bulbs that I ended up with, they aren't too hot. I can touch with my hand, they're a little warm, but the bulbs I had in the beginning I'll edit out and tell you the ones I actually ended up with, they got way too hot and actually melted the saran wrap on the shoes in there, and I could tell just by putting my hand in it was way too hot. So this is a perfect setup. We have a full-length tutorial on how to do indoor icing sessions and how long they should be. You can check that video out here. But this is about as good as it gets, and we'll go ahead and get into it and show you guys how to make this. The nice part is you can leave them overnight and just set it and forget it and ice your shoes while you're sleeping. So let's get into that.
Damn.
So here's all the supplies I used. I used a drill. I found out later using like a saw would be better if you have access to that, but I just use a pilot hole. We got 4 lights. I actually don't use those metal shields. I just took them out and used the socket. So if you can find the sockets, grab that. On the top right, that red stuff is double-sided tape. Above that is the Mylar film, M-Y-L-A-R. And that's actually very reflective. That's the most reflective material you can use. It's what they use for like grow houses and stuff like that. Of course, ice cream or plug in whatever you want to use here, Sea-Glo. The bulbs you see here, do not use those. I will show you on this next clip what bulbs I ended up with. Those were way too hot, but you want UVB and UVA. Those bulbs are way too hot. Then just some scissors. Alright, so I want to stop here because the bulbs that I just showed you got way too hot. They were plant grow bulbs. I thought those would be good, but they're way too hot. It literally melted the saran wrap that was inside the box on the shoe. These are the Reptile UVB 200 by Exoterra. You can find them on Amazon. There's also another brand called Zilla, and I believe their highest rating is 50. So just make sure they don't put out heat or they're not too hot to the touch, and you should be good. You could also use a full spectrum bulb, but just kind of play with it. I'll update you if I find better bulbs or a combination of bulbs, but this is what I'm using for this project. So you're going to want to get a container. The size is dependent on how many shoes you want to put in there or what you're working with entirely. So I'm gonna go ahead and just plot a couple holes here and measure across and try and make sure it's kind of even. It'd probably be better if you did stacks of 2, so 8 bulbs total, but I'm just doing 4 for now. I think that should be sufficient, especially with the Mylar film. So just plotting out these holes here, making them roughly even so you get a good spread of light inside the box. But again, that Mylar film is going to help a lot because it's going to reflect all the UVB and UVA for you inside that box, and that's the whole point of this project. So I'm using a drill bit here, or a pilot hole, I'm not sure the name of that. If you had an electric saw, this would be much easier. Going back and thinking about it, you're going to see here I'm going to struggle for a little bit and just circling out these sockets so I know the size that I need to cut, but I end up just putting a bunch of holes in the top and then using a knife to kind of connect those holes. Again, a saw would be a lot easier. Anyone who actually works on houses or know what they're doing is probably just cringing right now, but this is what I had to work with, so I went ahead and just used that knife to cut through all those holes. And so once that was out, I found that that worked. It wasn't super efficient, but the whole point is to get this socket to fall through and have the bulb hanging. But I definitely don't want the bulb itself touching the plastic. I feel like that would get hot. Just the electricity and everything on the plastic would not be good. So I need to widen this a little bit more to get that to actually fall through, so the plastic on the socket is what's touching the plastic. And right here you can see what I did. I just made some extra incisions right here to make that plastic flex so I can actually put the socket down in there. So the plastic on the socket is touching the plastic on the lid. And here's, after doing all 4 of those, the same process. Again, a saw would make this much easier. Doesn't need to be completely flush because a lot of that light is going to stay in the box and be reflected, and that's how mine's looking right now. So this next part is a critical component. We use Mylar, M-Y-L-A-R. I found it on Amazon. It's the 2mm thick. It's not as light as aluminum, so it doesn't tear as easily, so you have to cut it. And then I just placed this double-sided tape in a bunch of different spots to secure it, and then just removing the red pieces to reveal the double-sided tape. And then I went ahead and just took the Mylar and I'm going to attach it to the top of this lid, and then we'll cut out the holes for the sockets here in just a second. And the next part's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just rolling out the Mylar film. If it's a little bit bigger like mine is, I'm just going to cut off some excess at the end, but you just want it to cover all the way out to the edge. and later on I actually taped the excess to the top so I know it goes all the way through and I'm not missing any areas. But just press down on that double-sided tape, make sure it's secure, it grabs pretty well onto this material. So now I'm just going to secure these sides that are hanging over with some packaging tape, just so I know for sure that I have Mylar on Mylar, the edges of the inside of the container that we're about to do the same process to. Just want to make sure when I put this lid on that it clamps down and it closes entirely so I don't have any light escaping, or at least have too much light coming out of the sides. It's okay if a little bit's coming through, especially on this next part here with this terrible camera angle. I'm just cutting out the Mylar in the circle that we cut in the top, and it doesn't need to be exact, but I just need to be able to put that socket down through there and put the light bulb in. And the Mylar is so reflective that you have a little room for error here. Alright then, as you probably guessed, we're just doing the same exact thing that we just did at the top. Just putting a bunch of double-sided tape all over the inside, up on the sides. The one tip I would give is probably put more on the sides and close to the top so you get that to stick down. I had to go back and put a couple more extra on there, but I would probably just do them all the way up to the top and maybe another layer or two underneath. So after plotting all those, I just removed the red side to reveal the double-sided tape, and I cut out 5 pieces of Mylar just measuring, and I didn't film that because it took me a little long. You don't need to watch it, but trying to use one sheet and finesse it in there isn't going to work. Just cut out different sides like I did here, so there's 5 total, the bottom and 4 sides. On the corners I just cut so I could fold it down because it was starting to crinkle up a little bit more, and then I just used clear packaging tape to seal all those gaps together so it's completely enclosed. There's a little bit of overlapping, which is good, so the light won't escape behind it and it'll still be reflected for it. Then here's me just showing putting the sockets through and screwing in the bulbs. Again, the bulbs you see here are not the bulbs I ended up using. I filmed this before I got the new bulbs once I realized that these ones were way too hot. So you can see the Mylar kind of splits a little bit, but that's fine because it's still pretty well closed around that. Again, these bulbs do not use the bulbs that I showed you earlier, either from Zilla or Exoterra. These were way too hot and melted the saran wrap inside the actual. So then, as you saw in the beginning, here's just the final product. Just lay the lid on top. It doesn't have to close all the way. Just make sure that the light sockets are in. You have the lights in. I'd use a surge protector and then just put your shoes in. Again, we have a full video for indoor sessions and how to maximize that with ice cream. And this is what it looks like. I hope it was helpful. If you guys have any questions or concerns, just leave a comment below and we appreciate it.
Big head on the Gucci gang, 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 Gucci gang. Spread thin racks on new chain. My bitch love do cocaine. Ooh, I fuck a bitch, I forgot her name.